Okay, Chairman, we're now live.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome to a virtual meeting of the Executive Scrutiny Committee at the London Borough of Hillingdon. This virtual meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. The purpose of this committee is to scrutinise the decisions made by the Cabinet, who have just finished their meeting earlier tonight. My name is Councillor Keith Burrows, and I am the chairman of this meeting. Before we start, just some important online housekeeping for all councillors present this evening. Please ensure any mobile phones around you are on silent. Please keep your microphone muted when not speaking, and then unmute to speak. As chairman, I will call on those to speak during the meeting. In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through for a period of time, for example through a lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we are not quorate, which is 4 councillors. Before we start on the agenda, we just like to take a roll call. Please just indicate that you are here when I call your name. Councillor Wayne Bridges.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Cawthorne.
Good evening, Chairman. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Dennis.
Good evening, Chairman. I am present.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Arnold.
Good evening, Chairman. I am present.
I already know we have, I believe, Mark, apologies from Councillor Curlin.
That's right, and Councillor Mathers is substituting for him.
Okay, welcome, Councillor Mathers.
Can Councillor Mathers just indicate his attendance?
Yes, please.
I am present. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Mathers, for substituting as well. I understand that Councillor Money is also not present, Mark, is that correct?
Correct, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kerry Prince.
Present.
Welcome. And our co-opted education member, Mr. Tony Little.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Little. And obviously from Democratic Services to make sure this runs very smoothly, Mark Braddock.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will go through the apologies of absence, Mark. We've already done this through the roll call, but can you just indicate again, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Moving on to the formal bit now, I can confirm apologies from Councillor Curling, and Councillor Mathers is kindly substituting, and apologies from Councillor Money.
Thank you, Mark. Can I just ask, are there any declarations of interest in matters before this meeting? I will pause to allow you to indicate. No, Mark, can you just note that there are no declarations of interest, please?
No.
Right, to receive and agree the minutes of the last meeting, you have your agendas before you. I assume you have read the minutes. Can I take these as being agreed? Thank you. Mark, if you can note that they are agreed. I can confirm that the meeting will review the public reports and private reports as discussed and determined at Cabinet earlier this evening. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is any follow-up matters for clarification from last meeting. We had none from our February meeting, so we can just go straight across that agenda item because we had none to clarify. And this is where we now move to agenda item 6, which is consideration of the Cabinet member decisions this evening. So the first report we had before us was the Climate Change Action Plan. Does anybody have any comments on this? Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, following reading the report and hearing the Cabinet members' elaboration on it, I would like to propose that we call this in. It's not fully fit for purpose for the ambition and the boldness that the Cabinet member referred to. And the reason for calling is because it's about consultation, and there is a lack of detail on what that consultation will look like. The draft paper talks about consultation now and on the annual reports, but no mechanism of what it would look like. So whether it would be similar to budget consultation or similar, or if it would be done slightly differently, because there is within this draft strategic climate action plan a desire to engage more fully with multiple stakeholders. So that would require, in my mind, some detail on what that would look like. So I don't feel the Cabinet has been fully informed to be able to make the decision. Equally, within the draft action plan, it doesn't quite seem ready because it's missed the significant area of the council's own housing stock. So it talks about carbon emissions of council buildings and other services, and it's all very commendable. I'm not taking away from that. But there's no mention of how carbon will reduce within the residential housing stock that the council manages and owns, which is a significant aspect of the council's portfolio, as it were, and therefore should be considered strategically. There was also in the meeting following the climate declaration discussion about a commitment to look particularly at procured and commissioned services, and there's very little detail in this draft action plan, so it's not quite fully ready to go to the public, the residents, for them to comment, and equally we're not sure how they'll be able to do so, and what context will be provided, etc. And I'd expect more of that in the Cabinet item. So it is cool, and I do recognise that by calling it in, that would also affect recommendation 2 for climate action. Sorry, there's a lot of words here. Climate change action plan to come back to Cabinet in July. It may postpone that until September. And personally, I think because it's taken over a year to get to this point, an extra month or so that the draft climate change action plan is fully able to be consulted in every area of the council's work, and that consultation is prescribed, that Cabinet should reconsider.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Mark, I just want you to clarify that we cannot comment on the report as much as we may not agree with it, but we have to call in based on the recommendations. Is that correct?
That's right. These are recommendations should the committee, a majority of the committee agree, can be called in. Essentially, you'd be delaying publication of the draft and delaying the consultation process, which Councillor Mathers alluded to.
So Councillor Mathers' call-in is based on recommendation 1, which is the consultation, and the basis that there isn't enough within the report itself to actually back up what that consultation is going to look like and who or how they are going to reach the groups that are mentioned within the report. Am I correct on that?
Yes, so Councillor Mathers has indicated reasons for why he feels the draft perhaps should be different, have additional focus, or in terms of the things he's mentioned. The other side of that is that this is going for consultation, so there's an opportunity through the policy overview committees and the wider public consultation to shape the final report that comes back to Cabinet with maybe some of the things that Councillor Mathers has included, as mentioned tonight as well. So that's the other sort of way round as well, just for you to be aware of.
Okay, Councillor Cawthorne, I can see you've indicated. You're on mute.
I've sorted out my unmute. The difficulty of getting used to this committee is, of course, it's not really for us to comment, it's really for us to question, of course, and you and I are both used to commenting elsewhere. I mean, a couple of observations on this. I think the legal comments on page 12, I would have thought would constitute the fact that the Cabinet made a Wednesday reasonable decision. Again, whether or not we like what's in the climate action strategy is another thing. And I would have thought the question of consultation, if anything, would perhaps warrant a question in terms of what that might look like rather than a call-in. That's just a personal view for what it's worth, Chairman. I just thought I'd throw that in at this point. And indeed, as Mark says, the consultation process itself is designed to help shape and inform what comes out of this anyway. So there's time enough to sort of bring that together, I would have thought. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. If you could see what I'd written at the top of my agenda, actually, when it arrived in the post last week, one of the things was to ask that exact question that Councillor Cawthorne just alluded to clarify how consultation will be undertaken to capture all the groups listed in the report as being consultees, especially our residents. Rather than a call-in, it would be a question for us to get that clarification. I've also seen that Councillor Arnold has his hand up, but Mark, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in before Councillor Arnold, or shall I take Councillor Arnold first?
Chairman, Councillor Arnold first, please. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just to say that I'd like to echo Councillor Cawthorne's words.
Thank you. Councillor Mathers, I see you raised your hand again. Do you want to come in again?
If I may just clarify, Chair, if that's okay. So, as the report is about an approval of putting something for consultation, my main point is that there isn't the information in this for the Cabinet to make a fully informed decision and for that to be publicly shown in how consultation would take place and how it may or may not be different, which is a key element, which for a key element of policy, I would expect to see more detail of. So it's less of a question and more of a, it needs some reconsideration and information to be made in full consideration by the Cabinet.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to comment? I'll bring Councillor Cawthorne, you've indicated again.
No, yeah, I mean, once more, and I'll shut up. I mean, I think Councillor Mather's bringing up the point. To me, he's bringing up the point of when to be reasonableness, and I think really Mark needs to address that. If you would, Mark.
I'll bring in Councillor Prince first.
Through you,
she's
Jim.
Also indicated. Councillor Prince.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to put on record that I echo Councillor Mathers's points and believe that this should be considered for call-in.
Thank you, Mark. Can you fathom all of what's been said and advise accordingly, please?
So my view would be just to go back a bit in time, and you had the full council motion in January 2020, which resolved that Cabinet would receive an action plan. Cabinet has officers have prepared an action plan, which is draft, and that's the key word, draft. It is being proposed to go out for full public stakeholder resident consultation, including the policy overview committees, and I know it's scheduled for the corporate POC shortly, and that consultation will take place over a significant period of time. All those views will be put together, and the final decision, because that's the important thing, it's the decision that Cabinet makes, will be in July on the actual plan when it comes back. So that's the crucial point in terms of the decision on that side.
Yeah, thank you.
What I would add is if obviously Councillor Mathers has moved a motion to call call the first recommendation in, which has an effect on the second, that will need to be seconded. So I imagine Councillor Prince, if
I think Councillor Prince did that in her submission just now when she spoke, but if she wants to do that, I will allow her to do that in a second. But obviously Councillor Dennis has also indicated to speak. I'll take Councillor Dennis, then come back to Councillor Prince, picking up on what you've just said, Mark. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's good just to read the recommendations out again, because I think that'll sort of clarify things a lot. So the recommendation are: approves Hillingdon's draft climate change action plan for consultation, agrees to receive the final climate change action plan in July 2021, informed by the findings from the consultation process. So basically what we're being asked for is not to approve the consultation process as such, or how it's run, or any questions that should be associated with it, but it's basically to prove the fact, or not call in the fact, that this plan should go out to people to be consulted on. Now, the issues that Councillor Mathers raised, I think, are actually feedback within the consultation process. So rather than to stop the consultation from actually happening. In terms of how best to do consultations, there are many different views. My personal view is if you want to get wider stakeholder involvement, then it's better to have a sort of clear, high-level document. And obviously, if people want to have more details of what's underneath in each section, then provide that to those people. And I think that is probably what will happen. So while Councillor Mathers, I applaud his interest in this subject, because it's a very important subject, I think actually if we focus on what we're being, or what the Cabinet have been asked to recommend, I think it's quite clear that we should let this consultation go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Prince, can I just bring you back in based on what Mark Braddock just said about having a seconder for Councillor Mather's calling?
Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you,
Thank
Chairman.
you.
So then you would go to the vote basically in terms of
I think that's what we need to go to. Can I ask those in favour for a call-in indicate, please? And those against the call-in, please indicate.
Yeah, Chairman, I can confirm that motion has been lost.
Thank you. Can I just say that, Councillor Mathers, I accept what you are saying, but the crux of it is that this is the key word is draft. The consultation, if Mark takes this as just a query to find out how that's going to run, that can come back to us at our next meeting so we know how it ran. However, we also should remember that when this goes out to consultation, every single person in this meeting also has the opportunity to comment on this draft proposal we have before us, this draft policy that's here, the action plan. And Councillor Mathers, as you've already raised points that you're concerned about, I would hope that you put those forward most definitely as part of that consultation process to get them looked at before the final action plan comes to Cabinet in July. Okay, so any other comments or mention on those, Councillor Mark? Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. I think members seem to have an appetite perhaps to find out a bit more about the consultation, so I can perhaps find out more about how that's going to work in detail and report back to your next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. We just want to know, because obviously this is something that is going to shape Hillingdon for future generations, long after all of us have gone. And this is something that we've got to get right now, and we can help shape that at the outset. But, you know, we just want to know, Mark, how that's going to get out to our residents. How's it going to get to the stakeholder groups of businesses, etc., that are mentioned within the report, if you can, please, and report back to the next meeting. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good discussion. Moving on to the next item, that was the council budget. We had various recommendations and an addendum and recommendation 8. And I can see that, Mr. Little, you have your hand up.
Mr. Little, you're on mute.
It's very slow responding on Teams to unmuting. Chairman, I wonder if somebody could confirm whether the Department of Education dismissed the disapplication request that the council made, and if so, did it suggest any other way that the council should deal with the vastly accumulated deficit that has occurred in the high needs sector of education spending?
Mark, are you able to offer any insight to this, please?
Chairman, I can confirm it was refused as expected, but I can, if the committee wishes, I can find out more if there was any other additional advice or information sent alongside that to the council.
I think that's what Mr. Little would look for, if you could, Mark. Is that correct, Mr. Little?
Yes, it is, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments on the council budget, revenue and capital months 10? No? Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item 11, which is planning obligations quarterly monitoring. This was just a note item, which does come up all the time. and I'm assuming we're still happy that the fact, I'm sure that when your postman put your cabinet agenda through your letterbox and it made the thud on the doormat like it did in my house, I wonder what actually come through the door. But it was, of course, accompanied by the S106 278 agreements. Are we happy that that just continues as it does? And as responsible councillors, obviously, we can question any monies within our own wards. We happy?
I think Mr. Little, Chairman.
Mr. Little, sorry, Mr. Little.
Sorry, Chair.
That's it.
If my hand was raised, it was entirely an accident.
That's okay, Mr. Little. If you can just take your hand down on the buttons at the top of Teams. I know sometimes it does cause issues. We use this through the NHS, and when you got like 150 and 200 people on, sometimes it's almost chaos. So, okay, moving swiftly on to agenda item 8, which is part
Chairman,
2's.
Yeah, move to
yes.
part. Yeah, exactly. So
if you can cut the broadcast mark and let me know when it's done, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So if members could kindly remain on mute, and I'll shut the live feed